And we'll just take another minute to allow folks to connect who are still connecting. And in the meantime, I'd invite you to settle in to the posture that hopefully you can maintain for the next 30 minutes. So we're going to try to not fidget too much or need to adjust our posture. So getting as comfortable as you can, whether you're sitting on a cushion, in a chair, lying down. And if we're sitting at all, trying to invite a lengthening through the spine. And that can bring a little more energy to the practice. And also we can invite a gentle softening through the body. So it's finding that balance between the effort of bringing a posture or an aliveness to the practice, and at the same time settling in or gently allowing the body to relax. And I once heard it described as a regal posture, and I really like that description. So poised and present, but not rigid, very open. So as we begin the meditation, I would invite you to close your eyes. And if at any time you feel like you would like to open your eyes to kind of anchor out for a time, then of course you're very welcome to do so. But if it feels okay for you to do so, let's have the eyes closed, because we're going to be directing our attention to our emotional feel space. The sensations in the body that are arising that are related to our emotions. So to start, you may want to get a sense, if you can, of where you're at emotionally. And you may feel fairly calm, maybe feeling some happiness or joy. Some gratitude. You may be feeling a little anxiety, a little sadness, a little fear. So sometimes we might even find that there's a mix of more than one emotion present. So just doing your best to kind of check in, try to get a sense of where you're at. And then we're going to bring the attention into the body and see if we can connect with the sensation of that emotion somewhere in the body. And if we're fairly new to this type of practice, or if the emotion we're feeling is a little subtle, then we may want to start looking along the center line of the body. So the face, the throat, the chest, the heart, the solar plexus, the belly. So that can be a good place to start. And if we're feeling something that's maybe a little more intense, we may find that it's present throughout maybe the entire body. It might even feel like it permeates beyond the body. And when you bring your attention to see where the emotion is being expressed somatically, you may notice that there's more than one part of the body that seems to be experiencing some sensation. And if that's the case for you, you can really zoom in on one particular sensation in one particular part of the body. So with our attention, with the sensation related to the emotion, and we can guess. If we're not quite clear, that's fine. We can guess. We can start to do a very friendly investigation. So even if we're experiencing some challenging emotions, we're going to try to open to this physical sensation. And we can start to ask questions like, how much space does this sensation seem to take up in my body? Is there maybe a density to this sensation or a lightness? Does it seem to pulsate or throb? Is it still and quiet? And we may notice a shape, could be kind of round, could be a flat sensation, perhaps just covering, say, the surface area somewhere in the body. And we may notice that there's like a warm quality to the sensation or a cool one. There may be waves of energy moving through this part of the body, or little bubbles or tingling. So we learn as much as we can about how this emotion is expressing itself in this particular part of the body. And after we spent some time with that investigation, we can release our attention and just let the attention be free across the entire space of the body and allow it to land again to a sensation that you feel is related to how you're feeling emotionally in this moment. And it might return back to the same place. It might land somewhere else. And we can do our best as we practice to not get drawn into the story of what this emotion is about or why it's there, whether we need it to be different. So if the mind starts to generate thoughts along that line, if you start to become distracted and pulled into those thoughts, doing your best just to release your attention from the thinking mind and drop it back into the body. And we don't have to have a word for the emotion we're experiencing. We may get a sense there's a general flavor of emotion, but we just can't pinpoint it or define it, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes when we bring attention into the emotional space in the body, the emotion may intensify. That's perfectly normal, and just doing our best to kind of keep riding that wave, letting it grow stronger if that's what's happening in the moment. Perhaps as we observe, it fades or changes to a different emotion. But if it does intensify to a point when we're feeling maybe a little overwhelmed, a little unstable, then we have a choice in that moment to turn our attention to maybe a more neutral part of the body, maybe the feet or the hands. So while we practice this technique, it's not about finding a positive emotion or hoping that that's present. It's trying to be here, allowing things to be exactly as they are. And if, as we all do in life, connect with a challenging emotion, this can be a very productive way to kind of navigate that, to skillfully manage those times in our life. Some people find labeling during meditation very helpful. In this case, you may want to use the label feel. There are practices out there that label the particular emotion. But in this case, I think we'd like to keep it more general. We want to try to have less mind involved. So while I may connect with a sensation in my body that I initially feel is related to, say, my anxiety, as I bring my attention into the actual physical sensations, I'm going to do my best to even drop the idea of anxiety and just explore the actual physical characteristics of the sensation and track moment to moment how they change. So it's almost like we're a scientist in a laboratory. So changing the relationship to this experience of our emotions. Perhaps when you check in with your emotional space, it feels very neutral. There's really not an emotion present. And this can actually be a very peaceful and restful experience. So, if that's your experience, you can really inhabit that quiet inner world, that lack of emotional activation. So, if using a label feels like it could be helpful for you to help you stay on track, if the mind is very busy, if you're being distracted by the other sensory categories, or if the emotions that you are coming into contact with are very intense or challenging, saying the label feel every time our attention connects with a physical sensation related to that emotion, using that label feel can help keep us with the meditation as well as apply like a neutral label, and that may help kind of reduce the charge of emotions. And when the mind wanders, which it very likely will, maybe many times during this meditation, it's not a problem. Soon as we realize that that's happened, just gently bring the attention back into the body, back to the emotional space. Notice what's happening and try to really pay as close attention as you can. Notice the most subtle qualities of these sensations. And as we practice meditation, we develop that sensory clarity, we develop our concentration. We can really know more of ourselves, our experience. And we can learn to love our experiences, even when they're challenging, even when they're painful. We can open to them in a way that can reduce our suffering. We can be totally present in a way that we can be purified even by the most unpleasant emotional experiences. This practice can also help us enjoy a more fulfilling, complete experience of the positive emotions. Savoring each moment, being totally present to experience the beauty of positive emotions without needing for them to stay. With positive emotions, observing and allowing them to arise and pass without attachment. So if you're choosing to use labels, you could maybe do that every 5 to 10 seconds. Let your attention land on a part of the body where you feel you're experiencing the physical sensation of your emotion. Use the label feel. You can do that silently in your mind, or you could say it out loud. And then soak into it, soak into that sensation. Does it feel tight? Does it feel loose and open? Does it feel bright? Is it pulling in? Is it heavy or filmy? Is there any movement? And this is our inner energy we're connecting with. This is the subtle, energetic experience that we're connecting with. So we perhaps begin to learn that whether I'm in a rage or I'm feeling love, it's all energy that is arising and passing with its own unique features. So we become curious. What does it feel like in my body when I'm angry or sad or feel humor or gratitude or fear? And if we're new to this kind of practice and it's a bit confusing, if it's hard to be clear with what we're connecting with, that's perfectly fine. Over time with practice, we're able to have finer and finer discernment around our experience. See if you can get closer and closer to this inner feel space. Maybe even feel like you are inside of it. Maybe experiencing yourself as it, opening to this moment as your joy, as your irritation. Experiencing negative emotions is not a failure. Experiencing positive emotions does not make us more spiritual. Being present, being here now, having a complete experience, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, being open to that, that is meditation. It's not always easy, but if we can work with our emotional space with a technique like this one, then we can create a life where even challenging emotions don't knock us off our feet quite so hard. They don't maybe linger as long because the mind is not as involved. They become less sticky. And we can perhaps even have kind of enjoyable, energetic inner massage, even with intense, challenging emotions or intense positive emotions. as less and less mind is involved around the story, we're more and more experiencing just the energy, which is neither positive or negative. So, for these last few minutes of the practice, I'd invite you to open your eyes because this is a practice that I feel is particularly useful in life as a life practice. So, opening your eyes, but continue practicing, continue holding your attention in the body. With that inner emotional space. And you may not be able to have as much attention with those physical sensations, but we can still have some. So can be very helpful when we're in a conversation with someone and feeling a bit triggered, or we're enjoying a beautiful moment and we really want to enhance that experience. So I'd encourage you to try to weave this into your day. You could even be on your own and check in. Check in where you are emotionally and how that's being expressed in the body. We can be very surprised with how our emotions express themselves in the somatic space. It can be a fascinating exploration. So when challenging emotions arise, we can maybe even get a little excited. Oh, interesting. Sadness is here. What is that? How is that being expressed in my body? Love is present. What does that feel like?